Below is an extremely detailed, immersive narrative that follows Clint Eastwood through a life-altering on-set crisis, a journey of emotional highs and gut-wrenching lows that almost cost him everything. This story is divided into 3 captivating scenes. Remember, subscribe so you won't miss tomorrow's mind-blowing continuation. Scene 1. It was a humid, restless afternoon on a sprawling film set deep in the heart of New Mexico, where the rugged desert met the unpredictable skies. Clint Eastwood, the embodiment of cinematic grit and resilience, was in the middle of shooting what was meant to be his comeback masterpiece. The set was a sprawling replica of an old western town, complete with weathered facades, dusty streets, and saloon doors that creaked under the slightest breeze. Yet, beneath the meticulously crafted backdrop lay an ominous tension that no one could quite explain. Clint had always been a man of few words, a silent force whose steely gaze spoke louder than any script ever could. But today, his eyes betrayed a deep-seated apprehension. The stakes were higher than ever. Rumors had circulated around the set about dangerous practical effects and unforeseen technical glitches, but Clint had shrugged them off with his characteristic stoicism. He believed his experience and sheer will could tame any chaos. However, fate had scripted a different narrative. As the cameras rolled for a pivotal scene, a climactic showdown between good and evil, the set suddenly erupted into pandemonium. A cascade of unexpected technical malfunctions sent sparks flying from a rigged explosion, and an out-of-control pyrotechnic charge lit up the stage. In that split second, as the fire roared dangerously close and smoke began to fill the air, Clint found himself caught in the heart of a catastrophe that threatened to consume not only the set but his very career. Time seemed to slow as he ducked behind a prop wagon. The chaotic symphony of shouts, clanging metal, and the hiss of flames was overwhelming. Every instinct in his body screamed to run, yet he stood his ground, driven by an inner resolve honed over decades in the harsh crucible of Hollywood. In the midst of the chaos, as crew members scrambled to extinguish the blaze and safety teams rushed in, Clint's mind raced. He knew that if the accident wasn't contained, not only could the film be lost, but his legacy, the very essence of his storied career, might be forever tarnished. In that harrowing moment, Clint's heart pounded as he recalled the countless characters he'd played, the battles he'd fought on screen, and the personal demons he had overcome in his life. But now, it was no scripted confrontation. This was raw, unpredictable, and dangerously real. As he surveyed the destruction around him, a deep, piercing thought echoed in his mind. This could be the moment he loses everything he's built. Suddenly, amid the clamor of panicked voices and the roar of the flames, a gentle yet insistent voice reached his ears. It was the set director, calling out for calm and order, urging everyone to focus on safety and salvage what they could. In that critical instant, as the adrenaline surged through his veins, Clint made a choice. He would not be defined by fear or by the specter of failure. Instead, he would harness the very intensity of the moment to fuel a resolve that burned brighter than any fire on the set. Stepping out from his makeshift refuge, Clint moved with a measured, deliberate grace. His presence, marked by decades of unwavering determination, commanded attention. He rallied the crew with a few terse words and a nod that spoke of a silent promise, that he would stand tall, even when everything around him was crumbling. His voice, rough and laden with authority, cut through the chaos as he ordered, "Secure the area. Save what you can." His tone was not one of panic, but of unyielding resolve, a beacon of calm in the eye of the storm. As firefighters and technicians rushed to contain the inferno, Clint's eyes met those of a young assistant director. In that fleeting look, the weight of potential loss and the crushing fear of failure passed between them. It was a moment of shared vulnerability, as if the universe had conspired to reveal that even icons are not invincible. The fire, the destruction, it all symbolized the raw, unpredictable nature of life itself. In that charged silence, with the smoke swirling like spectral memories of the past, Clint vowed to fight, not just to save a film, but to reclaim the pride of a lifetime's work. The incident would forever be etched in his memory, a stark reminder that in the relentless pursuit of art, the line between triumph and disaster is perilously thin. As the flames died down and emergency crews restored order, the set lay scarred and smoldering. But in the heart of that devastation, a new chapter was about to be written. Clint's determination, born from the crucible of chaos, would lead him on a path of introspection, redemption, and ultimately, transformation. Scene 2. Emotional turbulence and the edge of despair in the days following the on-set catastrophe. Clint Eastwood found himself battling an inner storm that rivaled the physical chaos of that fateful day. The accident had left deep scars, not only on the set and the film but on his very soul. What was meant to be a triumphant return had nearly turned into a career-ending disaster. The media buzzed with speculation, and whispers of a tarnished legacy swirled through Hollywood's corridors like a persistent ghost. Clint retreated from the public eye, seeking solace in the solitude of his private ranch, a sprawling sanctuary nestled among rugged canyons and ancient oak trees. Here, away from the relentless glare of the cameras and the cacophony of Hollywood gossip, he confronted the raw truth of his own vulnerability. In the stillness of early mornings and the quiet of long, solitary nights, he wrestled with emotions he had long buried beneath his stoic exterior. Every memory of that chaotic day replayed in his mind like a relentless loop, a montage of flashing flames, desperate shouts, and the overwhelming realization that everything he had built could be snatched away in an instant. In the cool darkness of his study, lit only by the soft glow of a solitary lamp, Clint allowed himself to feel the pain of near loss. Tears, uncharacteristic for a man known for his rugged composure, welled up as he pondered the fragile nature of his craft and the impermanence of fame. In a particularly poignant moment, Clint found himself sitting at an old wooden desk, the surface scarred by years of use and memories of past successes. He slowly opened a weathered journal, a personal record of triumphs, failures, and hard-won wisdom accumulated over decades. As he read through the faded ink and handwritten notes, he recalled the words of a mentor who had once told him, "In every downfall lies the seed of a great comeback." But the weight of recent events made him question if that seed could ever sprout again. The emotional turmoil was compounded by the haunting fear of public humiliation. In the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, one misstep could lead to irreversible damage. Clint's reputation, painstakingly built over a lifetime of cinematic achievements, now hung in the balance. The pressure was immense. Every conversation with close friends, every private phone call with trusted advisors, was colored by the dread of what the future might hold. One evening, as rain pounded relentlessly on the windows of his study, Clint received a visit from a longtime friend and confidant, Marie, a retired actress whose own journey through Hollywood had been a tapestry of ups and downs. Marie's warm eyes and gentle demeanor were a stark contrast to the harshness of the outside world. Sensing the storm raging inside him, she sat by his side in silence for a long while before speaking softly. "Clint, you have faced so many battles. This is just another one, and I know your strength is greater than any setback." Her words, tender yet filled with conviction, stirred something deep within him. In the quiet moments that followed, as the sound of rain merged with the rhythmic beating of his heart, Clint began to open up about his fears. He recalled the exhilarating highs of his career, the roar of applause after a groundbreaking performance, the profound satisfaction of knowing he had touched hearts with his work, and contrasted them with the gut-wrenching terror of losing it all. The conversation turned into an emotional catharsis, as both friends bared their souls and acknowledged that even legends must sometimes confront their darkest fears. Over the next few days, Clint embarked on a solitary journey through memories and regrets. He visited locations that had once been the stage for his most celebrated roles, the dusty backlots of old Western sets, quiet corners of abandoned theaters, and even the silent corridors of a once bustling studio. Each place was a shrine to a past that was both glorious and painful. With every step, he felt the weight of years and the relentless passage of time pressing upon him, yet also the spark of resilience that had always defined him. During one particularly emotional visit to a deserted film lot, Clint found himself overwhelmed by a surge of nostalgia. Standing in the center of an empty soundstage, with nothing but echoes of laughter and applause from decades past, he allowed himself to break down completely. The raw vulnerability in that moment was palpable, a stark reminder that behind the tough exterior was a man who had sacrificed much for the love of his art. In the solitude of that vast, empty space, Clint made a silent promise to himself. He would rise from the ashes of this disaster and reclaim his legacy, no matter the cost. Yet, even as hope began to flicker in his heart, the specter of doubt remained. The film's future, the trust of his peers, and the support of fans were all in jeopardy. Every day was a battle against despair, a struggle to find the strength to move forward when every instinct screamed to surrender. The pressure mounted, and the emotional scars deepened with every memory of the catastrophe. But in that crucible of suffering, Clint discovered that true strength is forged in the fires of adversity. Determined to not let the tragedy define him, Clint began to channel his pain into action. He reached out to the film's producers, the cast, and the crew, acknowledging the disaster and vowing to rebuild, not just the project, but his own shattered confidence. His heartfelt apologies and earnest commitment to transparency resonated with many, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered in that moment of chaos. The emotional journey was far from over, but each step, each tear shed in private, brought him closer to a future where redemption was possible. In the midst of personal turmoil, a sense of purpose began to emerge. Clint realized that his experience was not merely about survival, it was about transformation. The on-set catastrophe had forced him to confront his deepest fears and vulnerabilities, but it also ignited within him a passion for authenticity and truth that would shape his future work. The pain was profound, yet it was paving the way for a comeback that promised to be as raw and genuine as the man himself. Scene 3. The redemption and the ultimate showdown. As the production resumed amid cautious optimism and renewed determination, the set became a battleground for more than just cinematic art. It became a stage for redemption, accountability, and the reclamation of a legacy. Clint Eastwood, now battle-hardened by the on-set crisis and the ensuing emotional storm, returned to the set with a resolute fire burning in his eyes. This was not just about finishing a film. It was about proving to himself, his peers, and his loyal fans that no disaster, no matter how catastrophic, could snuff out the spirit of a true artist. The final days of filming were charged with an intensity that was palpable in every frame. The set, still bearing the scars of that tumultuous accident, had transformed into a symbol of resilience, a testament to the idea that greatness is often born out of adversity. As the crew meticulously reassembled shattered props and rebuilt damaged sets, Clint prepared for the climactic scene that would serve as both the denouement of the film and the catharsis of his personal journey. In a dramatic turn of events, the climactic scene was designed to be a grand, emotionally charged showdown, a confrontation between the forces of chaos and the indomitable will to overcome it. The narrative called for a duel at high noon, a classic, timeless motif in Western cinema, and it was here that Clint would face not only a fictional antagonist but also the symbolic ghost of his past failures and doubts. On the day of the final shoot, the sky was a vast, unyielding expanse of blue, as if nature itself was challenging him to rise above the turmoil. Clint, dressed in his iconic attire, a weathered hat, a rugged leather jacket, and boots that had carried him through countless battles, stood at the center of the meticulously recreated frontier town. The camera's red light blinked, and silence fell over the set as I watched the legend prepare to deliver a performance that transcended the script. The scene began with a slow, measured approach. Clint's character walked down a dusty main street, the camera capturing every furrow of determination on his face. As he neared the center of town, the antagonist, a formidable figure whose eyes held a cold, calculated menace, stepped forward from the shadows. The tension in the air was thick. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum. Every breath was heavy with anticipation. In that moment, with the wind rustling through the abandoned storefronts and the distant cry of a lone hawk punctuating the silence, Clint felt the culmination of all his struggles. His mind flashed back to that catastrophic day on set, to the night spent in tearful solitude, to the painful yet transformative journey that had brought him here. The emotional weight of those memories intermingled with the present, fueling a performance that was raw, visceral, and heartbreakingly real. The duel that ensued was not a mere exchange of gunfire or bravado. It was a symphony of emotion, a collision of past and present. Every shot fired, every pause before a decisive move, was laden with the memory of loss and the promise of redemption. The camera captured the glint of determination in Clint's eyes as he squared off against his foe, a silent vow that he would not allow his legacy to be defined by tragedy. As the showdown reached its crescendo, a poignant silence enveloped the scene. In the final moments, Clint's character disarmed his antagonist with a move that was as graceful as it was resolute. In that instant, the weight of his struggles seemed to lift, if only for a heartbeat, and the man who had once teetered on the brink of losing everything emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The applause that followed was not just for a scene well played. It was an ovation for a lifetime of battles fought and a spirit that refused to be broken. The cameras continued to roll as Clint delivered his final lines, a declaration of resilience, hope, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. "In this world of dust and dreams," he intoned, his voice echoing across the deserted street. "Even when everything is lost, the heart finds a way to rise again." And with those words, the scene and the film reached its triumphant conclusion. In the aftermath, as the set crew wrapped up the final shots and the lights dimmed on the battlefield of his redemption, Clint Eastwood took a solitary moment to reflect. The journey had been arduous, and the scars would forever remind him of that fateful day when he nearly lost everything. Yet, in the crucible of adversity, he had rediscovered not only his passion for the art of storytelling, but also the unyielding strength that had defined his career from the very beginning. Stepping away from the set for the last time, he knew that the legacy he had rebuilt was far more than just a collection of films. It was the story of a man who had stared into the abyss and emerged with a heart forged in resilience and hope. The journey was far from over, but that day on the set had transformed a near catastrophe into a moment of ultimate triumph, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one can always find the strength to rise.